Let's get into it. I need to review a movie because you have been asking. So let's get into my review here of Morbius. We need to talk about Morbius.
Mm-hmm.
And famously, you've seen what other people say. The early buzz from critics, which we all trust the critics. Okay. The early buzz, it's a 16%. It's an 18% on Rotten Tomato from the critics. But that doesn't mean it's bad because the critics say so. Okay. I paid to see the movie at the AMC Burbank 16 in Burbank. Enjoyed a very amazing happy hour at Islands previously, which I strongly recommend. The happy hour at the Islands Bar. And went with a group of people. We went to see Morbius. And I'm familiar with the comic. I have not read the comic. He's effectively has the powers of a vampire. That's pretty much what I know. I've seen a lot of I've seen a lot of Morbius art. I remember the covers of the comics, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not so much into vampires, as a kid buying comics. So this is not a comic book for me. I prefer capes and tighties, guys wearing tights who can punch things. So not really familiar with Morbius, the comic book, or the lore or whatnot. So I'm going in cold, not knowing anything, and not having too much invested in it because I don't care if it strays too much from the comic because I never read it. All right. So I'm going in cold. But I really actually enjoyed Morbius. Is it a great movie? It is not a great movie. Is it a fun movie? Yes. First of all, thank you for having a running time that's under 2 hours. It's like an hour 40, hour 45, something like that. And let me just give you the highlights. Jared Leto is very good. He's very good. I mean, he has to walk with these walking sticks, and it's for the you actually get to see him as a child and how he struggled. And he had a best friend who ends up growing up to become Matt Smith, and the two of them are bonded because they each have an ailment that renders their legs useless. And he's also a doctor, and within this journey, of course, he ends up experimenting and gains the powers of a vampire, right? And ends up killing a bunch of people and feels terrible about it. And here's why I like Jared Leto's take on this performance. And the reason is that he feels remorse, right? He's imbued with these abilities, but he could also murder somebody. And it's something like, it's almost like, and I feel like they didn't really get the Hulk right in the Marvel films. They just didn't get the Hulk right. And the reason is this is like the Hulk can fly into a murderous rage and kill lots of people. And I feel like that Marvel kind of like dumbed that down or made it really comic bookish. It's like, oh, he's just mad. It's like, no, he can murder people, like literally with a punch, murder human beings or destroy a building, and that can collapse and kill hundreds of human beings. And I feel like in Morbius, Jared Leto's character cares more about the fact that, like, if I go into, my vampire state, I am going to kill somebody. I have to do everything I can to not do that, to not, not hurt the ones I love. I mean, which is sort of the reason why that, most of your superheroes have a secret identity is they don't want, harm to come to their loved ones. And I thought that's not really played up anymore. It's just like, oh yeah, they wear costumes. It's like, no, I'm trying to keep my identity secret because if someone finds out who I am, people I love could be hurt. And Morbius, it actually really leans into that. It leans into Jared Leto's remorse that he murdered people when he first gains these abilities. Additionally, he has to watch himself. He has to protect the ones he cares about, and even innocent people he doesn't know. He doesn't want to kill anyone with these abilities. Now it also makes it so he's able to walk again. And of course, Matt Smith, who's great in the movie, by the way. I mean, you see a turn. I like to see a character that changes. And it's also great that the first 30 minutes of the movie is really they're struggling with being kids who can't walk. And I thought that was, and then he bonds with Matt Smith. I thought the two of them really played well off of each other, and they become friends they're friends as adults. And it goes off the rails when they start to, it starts to get, some of the action sequences are a bit confusing. let's say. They go into this sort of like hyper, like it's almost like you're seeing his state, and his state of mind is like this, like I don't know, being on some sort of drug. So he's experiencing the world in a very bizarre way. And they kind of show that with the action, and it kind of makes the action, some of the action sequences are a bit confusing. Having said that, what I also like, which I have not seen in a superhero movie in a long time, I feel like they just sort of go, and they have superpowers. Well, what are they? What are my limits? What can I do? What can I not do? How can I make sure that I don't hurt people with these powers? I think that's interesting. So there's scenes where Morbius is kind of figuring out his abilities. He can sort of not necessarily fly, but he kind of like goes on these like waves and whatnot, this sort of vibration that allows him to kind of swoop around like a bat. And it really works. I don't know. Like we walked out of the movie with a group of people who saw it, and everyone was like, why do people hate this movie? Why do people hate this? And to be clear, the people who do not like this movie are critics. Critics don't like this movie. And I think that we've learned, I don't know, my thing is going in and out of focus. I need to work on
my backlighting. You need because your shirt is blending in with your background.
My shirt is blending in with I don't know what I'm doing here. But so I really, really enjoyed the whole, like, you see, there's a character arc. Oh, it's great. So I love all of those aspects. They actually take time to get you to like him, get invested in his story, and it's ultimately a tragedy. I will say this, there was a lot, this movie has been sitting on the shelf for like 2 years. And so my understanding is, what I have heard is that there were other things that were supposed to happen in this movie to connect it to Spider-Man. And can I just say, without giving anything away, they connected to Spider-Man very directly. More than just a scene where Dr. Morbius is reading a newspaper, and it's the Daily Bugle. Okay, so there's more than just that. So
like in Carnage.
Just let's just say, okay, stay to the very end. Stay to the very end. Some weird stuff happens, and I do believe it connects to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This connects to it. 100% connects. I'm not going to say it sets it up. But it connects to the upcoming Doctor Strange movie. So no more I'm not giving spoilers, Fletcher. I'm not going to talk spoilers. I think it's just opened. Opened last night. Don't want to talk spoilers, but I will say I had a good time. Is it a great movie? I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10, maybe a 6 or 7 out of 10. So it's not, not the greatest, but did I have fun? Yes. Did it explain or make me care about a Marvel character I didn't have any knowledge of? Yes. Did it show things we haven't seen in a superhero film in a while, which was like a friendly reminder, like, oh yeah, you kind of need to do that. You kind of need to like the character. You kind of need to lean into, he should feel some remorse if it's possible that he could murder people. I feel like they never really did that with the Hulk. The Hulk is supposed to be Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and they kind of did that in the beginning and then just completely forgot about that aspect of the Hulk, right?
So the question then is, do you want to see a second one?
I would want to see, I don't know if I want to see a second Morbius movie. I feel like they built the character. I would like to see Morbius in another Marvel movie. Who knows? In a Spider-Man movie, for sure. I feel like it's interesting because he is sort of an anti-hero, right? Like he could be a villain, he gets into a murderous rage. So, and Mike Diver would say, is it fair to say you are generally kind in your reviews, Chris? No.
No.
No. How long?
No.
Diver? Jesus. And look, am I kind? I'm giving it a 6 or a 7. So that would be 60%, 65% on Rotten Tomatoes would be my score, right? Which I still think is just like barely fresh, but it's not a 16 or 18%. That's reserved for movies like the Josh Trank Fantastic Four, and Josh Trank really is not to blame for that, to be quite frank. But yeah, I'm not. I let's say I'm kinder probably to indie movies, with regard to budget, because indie movies don't have the kind of budget that big studio productions have. But this surprised me. Oh, look, let's go to the comments here. Paulie from Latino Slant says 7 out of 10. Slant approved. See? There you go.
I will say a 6 from us is an approval.
Yeah. Fletcher Williams, no way. When he hates it, he hates it. Yeah. What did I hate recently?
Oh my gosh. Well, we talked about Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, Everything Everywhere All at Once. I hated that movie.
I love that movie.
By all accounts, I should have loved it, and I did not hate it. So Gabriel says, what do you think caused critics not to like the movie all that much? Lack of politics? I'll tell you exactly, Gabriel. Very good question. Why did critics not like this so much? And I'll tell you why. It's not Marvel. It's not Marvel enough. And that's why I liked it. Why I liked Morbius is that it didn't do what a Marvel movie does. Like, oh, quippy, funny. Haha, I'm the side character. I'm going to come in and say something goofy. There was none of that. This is a horror film. This is a superhero / horror movie. That's what this is. And I feel like critics, I don't know. I've never trusted critics. And I don't know, my opinions, because I care a lot about indie film. And I love documentaries, although not the state of documentary film currently. But I tend to like things also for weird reasons. But yeah, I will say this. There's nothing woke in the movie, nothing woke whatsoever. There's not at all, zero. And maybe that's why they didn't like it. But also it didn't have that kind of Marvel sense of fun. I mean, even Moon Knight that we talked about earlier this week sort of has those kind of Marvel-y things, like the security guard that's looking at pictures of otters on his phone. He's always doing that, and that's his character. And his one defining characteristic is that he looks at otters on his phone, and he's the security guard, and he says hi to Oscar Isaac. And that's what he's supposed to do. And that's Marvel.
Does it have a cool musical opening?
Look, I believe that the reason critics don't like it is it's not Marvel enough. It's its own thing. It's darker. Like I say, superhero horror. And
they like Blade. I don't know why,
Exactly. Well, but Blade is like, I don't know. There's a whole generation of Marvel fans that haven't seen Blade. But Marcus Bismuth says, I dislike most Sony superhero movies. This is the same studio who made Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's also the same studio that made No Way Home. Come on.
Yeah.
Give it some credit.
And Spider-Man.
Goober's Otters, you say? Ken Bogus, Otter Isaac. And Martin Sober says, so Morbius is kind of like Darkman. Funny you say that. Yes. In fact, Red Letter Media had a really good, analysis. I wouldn't say it's so much a review. They do these really great deep dives. It's like a mini documentary. So Red Letter Media, they don't need my help. Red Letter Media, they have like 1 million subscribers, but I have subscribed to them since they did that Phantom Menace review that was broken up in 10-minute segments. And it's like a 2-hour review. It's great. But yeah, in a way it is a little like Darkman. I would say it definitely follows that, sense of remorse, figuring out what the powers are, testing the limits, not always succeeding, having a moral center, just to see a character in a mainstream movie that has something of a moral center is refreshing. But yeah, it's a lot like Darkman. And God, I actually messaged the people from Red Letter Media because I happen to know Sam Raimi and the gang from back in the day. I grew up in Michigan. I was a kid, and Sam Raimi, Rob Tappert, Scott Spiegel, they had a company called Renaissance Pictures. They were in Ferndale. I grew up in Royal Oak, Michigan, and I befriended them. And in early print issues of Film Thread, I interviewed Sam Raimi many times because he was the one filmmaker I could get access to. So I know so much about Darkman and Evil Dead, and among other things. So I actually messaged the people from Red Letter Media who never respond to their Twitter messages. And I told them a couple funny stories just because why not? So
I will say, leading up to this, I in general, I don't like to know anything about a movie. I don't like to read the buzz about a movie because the buzz behind this movie was really bad. And that definitely influenced me to not see it last night. But it's, I want to know, how much does the media and the buzz coming out before a movie really affect the movie itself? I feel like we're supposed to hate Morbius because of the way people are talking.
And Latino says, no long musical intro. They jumped right into the story. And Tristan Barracks corrects me. Barracks says, no, they did not make No Way Home. Isn't it a co-production between Marvel Studios and Sony?
I think
so. Who made it?
Marvel Studios is technically the production company behind.
Yes, but okay. But we don't know. No one in the chat, no one here. We don't know the exact specifics of exactly who had the hand in the decision making. My feeling is it probably was a little 50-50 on that, with Marvel having some input and Sony having a lot. I mean, the fact that it's not like super overly woke or agenda driven tells me Sony probably had more influence than Marvel, because most of what Marvel has put out lately and what we see in the future is just all. I mean, I don't really care much about Marvel now. I'm like, hey, yeah, and Fletcher Williams, Chris name dropping. All right, well, yes, I'm gonna, if I have a connection to something, yes, I knew Sam Raimi and those guys like back in the day. And even then, Sam Raimi, this is a thing that he does. He can never remember people's names. So if he meets you, he'll just say, hey, pal, hey, buddy. And apparently he's still.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you again, pal. Hey, pal. So he'll recognize you, but never remember your name. Yes, just from being around, look, I'm an old dude and I've been around. I know a lot of people from indie film. So Sam Raimi started as an indie filmmaker. You just making little indie movies. Darkman was the first big thing, right? So there you go. I'm gonna, if I actually know somebody and I'll tell a story, it's not like Sam Raimi's responding to my calls or whatnot. So
when you meet us tonight, and we say, hey pal, just give us your name. And
yes, there you go.
Make it easy on us.
And then people are, look, Anatorius Vex says, I'll give it a 70-30 split with Sony dominant. Yeah, I think it's like we'll never know. But what is the result? No Way Home is a very satisfying experience.
Let's also remember that Spider-Man is a tentpole character, and that, that has to be treated differently than the minor characters that Marvel is bringing out right now.
And did you also get tight with the Coen brothers? I did not. I didn't. But I did become friends with, and still am, with Jeff Dowd, D-O-W-D. Jeff Dowd, you may or may not know, is he is what they call a film rep. And what Jeff Dowd does is he goes to film festivals or he'll seek out a movie and then help get them into a film festival. And what he does is he negotiates a distribution deal for the filmmakers to make sure they get paid. So he's what you call a producer's rep, right? So he reps the producers of the film to help them sell it. And Jeff Dowd, you may or may not know, and you can look this up, Jeff, D-O-W-D, is the basis for which the Coen brothers created the character The Dude, because everybody called Jeff Dowd The Dude. So I know the guy who The Dude is based on, but I'm not friends with the Coen brothers. I may have met him once or twice, like at a film festival, just from going to Sundance. So let's see. Memashuga says, I actually heard the violence in the movie was toned down too much, especially compared to darker Marvel stories like Jessica Jones. Again, just what I heard. Well, forget what you've heard. See for yourself, Memashuga. Go see for yourself. It was very violent. I think it's borderline R, but we checked. It's actually PG-13. But I would say that some of it, I mean, like, people get straight up murdered. There's a lot of blood in certain scenes. I mean, you would expect that there'd be blood. And Chicago Box says, the dude abides. The dude abides. So there you go. But yeah, I don't listen to the critics. How many times do you have to say, why do people react like, oh, the critics are giving it a bad score? The critics are giving it a great score. Never. I mean, look, if I've learned anything, and I think more than ever, we all need to remind ourselves, question everything, including critic scores. I tend to, when you look at the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, I tend to trust that more, because, as long as it's not getting review bombed, right? I trust that score. That's what the general moviegoer thinks. And I think you're going to see Morbius when the audience score, it's going to be between 60 and 70.
Yeah, it's 64 right now.
It's 64. So look, 64. So what did I say? 65%? Like that was my guess. Like, okay, so there is, when you see there's a clear divide between the critic score and the audience score. I tend to always go with the audience because I feel like I am a general audience goer when it comes to mainstream movies. I do tend to probably dislike more things than I like than most others like for various reasons. I know a lot of people liked Everything Everywhere All at Once. I did not. There are a lot of other movies that have come out recently that I really, really did not like. The Lost City with Sandra Bullock, didn't like it. No, I wanted to see the movie that was in the trailer, and we didn't get that. The movie that I saw was just slow moving and meh.
Sometimes I feel like Rotten Tomatoes, there's a peer pressure involved that you have to hate it if you want to maintain some kind of credibility.
Morbius, the audience rating, which Alan just told us, is at 64%. I think that's a much more accurate representation than the, what is it, 16%?
15.
15. So it's 15% critics rating. No, it's not. Look, there's no there's nothing in there. There's no agenda other than entertain and tell a superhero horror story. So there you go.
You know, I bet if you wrote the review, you could bump it up to 16.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't really write reviews so much anymore. I'm pretty much doing
yeah, that's
YouTube.
our job.
Yeah. So there you go.